Welcome to the Super Gamer Podcast. Welcome to the new Super Gamer Podcast, episode 130. Our guest this week is a Twitch partner and the retro ambassador for Twitch. We have AshSaidHi. Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. Hi, how's it going?
It's going well. How are you?
I'm doing very well. I actually just made lunch and it came out pretty good, so I'm very happy.
Oh, good. I hope you've eaten it and I haven't interrupted.
Oh no, I definitely inhaled it, so we're good.
So you've been streaming on Twitch since March 2019, and in the course of, I guess, a little more than 3 years, you've become an ambassador for the retro gaming category. But when you first saw Twitch, you were kind of like, well, why would I want to watch someone play when I can just play myself? So what changed your mind? How did you get into this?
Wow, you've definitely done your research. It's funny because, I love video games since, being a very young child. My parents were big gamers. My mom still plays video games. She loves Elden Ring and Kenna and all those cool PlayStation games she loves to play. But, I, as a gamer myself, all my life, I was always like, why watch someone play a video game when I can play a video game myself? And I didn't really understand Twitch culture. But as I started to get into it and stream myself, broadcast myself, I was like, okay, I totally see the appeal because it's more than just playing a game and other people watching. It's the conversations that you can have, the ways that you can connect with people on your favorite games or, games that you didn't think a lot of people cared about. But, you're finding other people who loved them just as much as you did. And for example, I didn't think that there was a lot of people that were into the Amiga 500, the Commodore Amiga. And I found a really amazing community on Twitch that broadcasts Amiga games all the time. And it made me so happy to be able to talk to people about it and connect with them and, just have fun and remember the best parts of my childhood. So I think that's a big reason why I really got into broadcasting. And it was really just talking to people, meeting people, and also showing people games that they might have had no other means of seeing. So that's always really fun to me.
Yeah, you grew up in a gaming family, like you said. You played with your dad, your mom, your cousins. I do find it funny that you're into retro and your mom is playing PS4.
I know, it's so funny. And it's I ask her sometimes, would she ever play some of the games that we played, when I was growing up? And she's like, I can't play those old games anymore. I just can't do it. And I'm just like, I guess she just really loves graphics, I'm like, okay, all right. She really likes the new games. So, that's cool. But then I get a way to watch some of the games that I myself never really get a chance to play. She convinced me to get Elden Ring, so I got it on Steam. So,
is there anything that you two still play together?
No. Well, she wanted me to play Elden Ring with her, but I think correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think there's cross-play between Steam and PlayStation. So I don't have a PlayStation. So that's why we couldn't play together. I wish we could, but I'll have to find another game for us to play together.
Are we going to get the Mom Said Hi stream?
Yo, I ask her all the time, and she is not with it. She is not with it at all. And I'm just like, come on. They would love it. They would love to see your skill. You're so good at these games. Just do it. You don't even have to look at the camera. Just play, and I'll talk to the camera. But she ain't with it. So, I got to respect her privacy.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of, perhaps most of your Master System and Amiga stuff that you have was your dad's. And
yes.
I think about 2 years ago, you got your dad's Amiga 500 working. Was that kind of an emotional moment?
Oh, absolutely. So one of my friends that I met through Twitch, his name is Amiga Bill. He's an incredible person and still runs the Amiga Westchester group meetings. Every month he does it. And when I connected with him, I told him that I had my dad's Amiga. I wasn't really sure if it worked. And if I needed to get it to work, how could we get together and do it? So he invited me to a few of those meetings, and I did go, and it was really nice meeting them. They're a really nice group of people. And they took a look at it and they were like, oh, Ash, it's nothing bad. Like, you can totally get this working again. So we actually did a co-broadcast together on Twitch, and we got it working live on the stream. And it was very emotional for me because my father had passed away in 2020, which is how I inherited, all of the things. And I wanted to make sure that I preserved them as best as I could because, like I said, a lot of some of my best memories, with my parents is us playing games together. And I remember clearly watching my dad play games like Dungeon Master, Eye of the Beholder, Awesome, Shadow of the Beast, like all those things, like very clearly. And so just having it working and being able to play the things that he had when he was growing up and kind of learn more about him through all of the things that he kept and preserved himself is really meaningful to me. It's extremely meaningful to me. So I'm so glad that I'm able to share that with my audience as well. And that's the thing that I tell people all the time is like, whenever I'm sharing these things of these games that I play with you on Twitch, you're not just getting somebody who just wants to play video games for the sake of playing video games. Like, I literally am sharing who I am as a person with you. So that's why it's really important to me. And that's a big reason why I love doing what I do.
Yeah, and as far as like kind of getting to know who your father was by like looking at the games he played in that, I know I've been told that there's at least one game. I unfortunately don't know which one it is yet, so maybe you can tell me. But there he like wrote like guides and tips in the manual. So in a way, it's almost like a diary.
Yeah, you're talking about Zillion for the Sega Master System. He did a map for it that I used on stream multiple times because, one, it's really nice that I have a friend who's really into retro achievements. His name is Game Squad. He's really awesome. And I was like, yo, Max, his name is Max. I was like, Max, can you tell somebody to make a retro achievement set for Zillion? Because there is no retro achievement set for Zillion. There's barely even speedrun on speedrun.com for Zillion. So they actually made it, and I played it with the map the first time and just beat it on stream, which took me, I think, like 4 or 5 hours, maybe even 6. But then I was recently playing it to get the retro achievements, and it's a really fun set. So yeah, like I used his map, and everybody's like, "Oh my God, that's so cool!" All the notes he made, they're very detailed. Like it's such a great thing to have. So I hold it very close to me.
That's such a cool thing. I know you've talked about this on other podcasts before, or other interviews anyway, and I know this makes us sound ancient, but there's sort of a coolness, we'll never have it again, where like there was a time when if you didn't know something, you didn't know it. Like you couldn't just go look it up. You had to play a game and like take notes and be like, okay, now I have this.
Yeah, you know what? That reminds me of when my cousin and I played Super Mario RPG for the very first time. And if you've never played Super Mario RPG before, please cover your ears for the spoilers. But there were some really cool Easter eggs in that game. And I remember when my cousin found it, he was like, oh my God, Ash, you gotta see what I found in this game. And then, like some of the things that we saw, he was like, look at this character in this room. And if you go behind here in Booster's Tower, you could do this thing. And, like all this stuff. And you're just like, yo, how did you figure this out? Because, obviously, like you said, it's not like I could go and pull up game facts or whatever, and find like all the little hints and tips. We had to figure it out and play these games for like 40, 50, 60 hours to find all this stuff out. So you just reminded me of that. And that's a very like memory that's like stuck, embedded in my brain.
The Booster's Tower thing definitely made me, when I was a kid, I was like, oh my goodness, and the music that plays, I was like, this is so cool.
I know, I love it. I love it.
But actually, funny enough, while while researching you, I went back and watched one of your Mario RPG clips, and that, again, people cover your ears if you haven't played, but that frog coin you got by jumping on Toad's head and then, like, above the map, I did not know about that until literally, like, 10 minutes ago.
Yep. Isn't it nuts too? And that's another one that my cousin told me about. Like, he was like, because I remember we tried to get all the frog coins, and he probably played through an entire game and couldn't find that one, but then went back and he was like, yo, Ash, I found the last one. And it was like, if you don't get it at that point in the game, you cannot get it, period, ever again. So you have to know these things. Otherwise, you know what? You just have to play the game over and over again to find them.
When you were growing up, was there ever any fighting over, like, who got to use the console or the TV?
Not really, because like whenever we played a one-player game, like I played tons of one-player games with my cousin, like Chrono Trigger, Illusion of Gaia. We were just having so much fun watching each other play through the story. Like, I don't think we ever fought over it. And you know, like, if there was ever a time when we wanted to play something different, like my cousins had a Sega Genesis, but I didn't. I only had Super Nintendo. The only arguments I remember having with my cousin about video games was whether Sega Genesis was better than Super Nintendo. And I was always in the Super Nintendo. Oh, and also he used to argue with me about whether Jade Cocoon was better than Pokemon. And I was like, obviously Pokemon is better, but he really loved Jade Cocoon for some reason. So
I don't even know that game.
Jade Cocoon is a PlayStation 1 game that's like you gotta like catch like the bugs and stuff, and it's very Pokemon-ish. You know, like you catch the bugs, you make them fight for you and stuff like that. So
one of the coolest things I think, that I think about you, you had your face up in Times Square as, you know, a Twitch streamer. You were right there. They had a big ad. What was it like actually being there, seeing that?
It was a very out of body experience. Like, I almost cried. Like, it was so, I mean, to have your face in your hometown in like one of the places that people from all over the world want to go to, it was just a very amazing, incredible, like surreal experience. And I remember when I got the call for that, I immediately called my mom and I was like, Mom, you will not believe what I'm being asked, like what someone wants to do for me through Twitch. And I immediately bought a plane ticket to go when they told me the ad was going to be up. And I went and saw it in person, and it was just absolutely incredible. And I think like the biggest thing it definitely did was like give you that street cred, you know, like that, yo, you had your face up in Times Square. Like, that's really, really freaking cool. So it definitely is amazing. And it, you know, like, I know that it always sounds cheesy when people say stuff like this, but it's really true. Like, it's like if you imagine yourself being successful and doing things to make yourself successful, you can absolutely do anything you want.
Were you like stopping people in the street like, that's me?
No, because don't forget we're in New York. And at that time it was like the height of COVID. So
right.
Yeah, so it's like, yeah, I didn't want to like go up and walk up to people, but yeah, like also people would have probably looked at me and been like, so what?
I went to New York once many years ago. It was great, but the one thing that stood out to me, I was in Times Square and someone was like telling us about a comedy show, and they're like, oh, you're Canadian. Canadians love comedy. That's great. And my girlfriend and I were like, how did you know we were Canadian? And he said, because Canadians sound like Americans who were raised in the woods.
What in tarnation does that even mean?
I don't know, but apparently that's the case.
Okay, that is a new one. I never heard that before.
You have a huge collection of gaming stuff.
Yeah.
How many plushies do you have?
I never sat down and counted. Do you want to sit down and count with me, like real quick?
How much time do we have?
I know, for real. I never really counted. I would, if I had to guess, I'd probably say close to like 200. Because there's a lot of tiny ones in there that people can't see that I usually have to like shuffle the collection around for it to get some face time because there are some plush that I use to kind of prop the other plush up. And I've been collecting like pretty much since video game merch became like even a thing, you know. I remember I went to E3 in 2005 and I was looking for video game merchandise to buy and I just could never find it. And anytime I did find it, I made sure to buy it. And I think back then that's when I bought like my first Mario plushie. And I always was like, if I find it, I have to buy it because it's just not available. And now it's like, okay, I can find anything almost anywhere or import from Japan or whatever. So now it's available. So I don't buy as much as I used to, but if I see something really awesome, like I went to New York on Thursday and I went to the store in New York and I bought a Star U plushie because he was just so cute. I couldn't resist, so I bought it.
As far as the gaming memorabilia, well, I guess, do you have a favorite piece of what you have?
I would probably say my favorite thing is, I mean, my Sega Master System. It's probably got the most meaning for me because that, like I said, that's something that I played with my dad. And, you know, like I have a lot of fond memories of all the games that I have, the game library. And so it's, you know, it really holds a special place in my heart. And I also really love the design of it. Like I've always loved, you know, the color theme of it, like that red and gray grid that's on the front. And I always love like everything about the Sega Master System. Even though I haven't gotten a chance to play a lot of Sega games, that is probably the one that I've gotten to play the most, Sega Genesis, like library.
Right. You have a big amiibo collection as well, still in boxes. So I'm wondering, like, when you buy something, how do you decide what are you allowed to open, and what are you like? No, I'm keeping this in pristine condition.
Well, the amiibo I kept in the box because it's easier to display that way for me. So I have every single Smash amiibo. I think that there's still a few that have yet to come out, but I have every single one up until what's been released and all the Zelda ones and things like that. The amiibo that are out of the box are actually ones that I inherited from my dad because he had a big amiibo collection. He really loved collecting like the Splatoon and the Zelda amiibo. So most of the ones that are open were the ones that belong to him. And I usually like to keep my things inside the box for the most part, unless I know, like, you know, like, or if I'm just like tired of like keeping things in the box, I'll open it. Like, it's never my intent to be like, oh, eventually I'm going to sell this or whatever. You know, usually I try to keep it just because I feel like it just maintains better that way. And it's easy to pack if I ever like, you know, want to move things around the room and stuff like that.
I'm a big fan of your triple triad cards because I didn't know those existed, and I love that game.
Yeah, triple triad is really like, well, that's the reason why I love Final Fantasy VIII, and probably why Final Fantasy VIII was one of my favorite Final Fantasy games, because I think that one, other than 7, I'm pretty sure I played that one the most because I really love the art style. And when I found out that they made those triple triad cards, they only came out in Japan. So I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get these? And I found someone on eBay that was selling some. So I was like, okay, let me get some of these because it had some cool ones in there. I think it was like the Poo Poo card was in there. Like they had, I think like Bahamut was in there. There was like a bunch, Carbuncle, a bunch of stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm going to get this set because they're kind of expensive to buy since you could only get them through importing. So I was like, all right, I need to get these because I love that game. I love the song. I love everything about it. And I think that there's like an app where you can play Triple Triad, or at least there used to be. I don't know if it still works anymore, but sometimes I played that on my phone too.
Yeah. And one more thing about the collection. So you obviously display a ton of it behind you when you stream, and you're very particular about arranging things. How much time do you put in, and like what's the thought process of what you're putting on display?
I always am working on how things are displayed. In fact, today I even like I found some of my dad's Atari supercharger stuff. It was like a cassette, and like the supercharger was like this thing that you can add that would add like more RAM to the Atari. So I was like, oh my gosh, where am I going to put this? So I put it kind of like in a place where it's like if I ever need to get to it, I could just bring it out, but it's not necessarily seen. But you know, I just kind of try to put a little bit of everything in there so people know, like, okay, like I've got a little bit of everything. And then I move stuff around if I ever like use it. So sometimes like I'll stream from the actual hardware. It's like kind of like difficult to set up sometimes because I got to like use the OSSC and like all this other stuff. But sometimes like I'll move things around when I use things. And like I said, sometimes I'll move around like the plush because things, like naturally like fall, or, like a viewer will be like, oh, can I see this thing? And then something will move and then I got to reset it and stuff like that. And also cleaning, because like there's a lot of stuff in here. So I've got to like make sure I stay on top of cleaning and stuff like that. So I always try to make sure that people could see a little bit of everything. A little Nintendo, a little Sega, a little, classic Atari, all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of the thought process. But it took me, when I first set up this room, it probably took me, probably like a good 3-4 days, like if I was to add up the time. But like I did it over like a month's worth of time, but like all that time, like if I put it hours back to back to back, probably like 3 days.
Have you ever had anyone over and they're like, oh, so cool, and they like take something, you're like, no, everything's supposed to be in it?
No, thankfully, no. Like when I lived in New York, yeah, people will come over and be like, oh my gosh, Ash, every time I look somewhere, I see something new. But I'm very like careful about who I invite over, because I'm just like, I do not like people touching my things.
So your Twitch grind, you've built a big brand over 3 years, and your grind involves a lot more than what you're doing just on air. You check out a lot of other streams, you make connections, you promote yourself and others. Like, how important is that off-air stuff to building your Twitch brand?
I think it's definitely, I think it's integral to your success that you learn and, use the platform a lot, like a lot, just to keep it really simple. Like, I feel like if you don't familiarize yourself with how things work on Twitch and what the culture is like, and how people use the platform itself, because that's another thing too. Like, watching streams doesn't just mean I'm watching it like passively. Like, I'm seeing how do they use it? What kind of like overlays do they use? What kind of channel point redemptions do they use? How do they shout people out? How, what is doing something that's too much? How much overlay is too much overlay? How much activity is too much activity? The difference between, a broadcast that's very calm versus one that's very, very like, has a lot of entertainment value. So I think it's really important to, like really dissect what's happening there and be an active watcher. So I think it's important because also to assess how you fit within the space and what can you do to offer something that's unique to your viewers, because it can get very stale very quickly if you're not constantly assessing how you deliver content. You need to constantly assess, are my emotes good? Are my channel points good? Are my sounds good? Like, like is the visual quality good? Like it's extremely important. And I wouldn't necessarily call it a grind. And I feel like the reason why is it just has a really big negative connotation where it's like you feel like you always have to be on, you always have to be productive, you always have to do something. Because somebody like me, I typically don't stream for more than 3 or 4 hours per time. Like, there's nothing wrong with, what people do where they want to stream, 6, 7, 8, 10, 12 hours. I personally find for me that it is more healthy to stream in shorter spurts because then I come back refreshed and ready to deliver, entertainment at a high capacity when I, make sure I get enough rest and divide my time to other things offline as well. But I will say that I do spend a lot of time working on things on Photoshop, editing video and, watching my VODs, making sure I watch my VODs a lot. Like every single time after a stream, I go and I see what clips have been made. I go and I air check the VOD and I make sure that it looks and sounds good because nothing turns off somebody more than if your sound quality is poor or, you got like, your framing issues and stuff like that. So I think it's really important to constantly assess what you're doing.
And you've just this past week started up something called the Awesome Streamer Hour. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah. So Twitch invited me into the alpha for guest star, which I was really, really, really excited about when I first heard the announcement for it. I was excited because I had always had this idea. I literally had that overlay for the Awesome Streamer Hour since the day I started streaming, and I never used it because I didn't feel like at the time I was ready to do something like that. Like, I feel like if I was going to do something like that, I at least want to make sure I knew enough about the platform and broadcasting as a whole to make a intelligent statement about it or to ask people questions intelligently. So Twitch invited me to that alpha and I was like, oh, snap, this is really easy to use. It's really fun. And I've always wanted to have conversations with people. And so I tested it out with my friend Street Grind, who is an absolutely incredible broadcaster. And he agreed and I was so happy. But the day that I wanted to do it, like Twitch was down and I literally was like about to cry. Because I was like, why does it have to break today? And I didn't have another day to do it with him because I was flying to New York. And so I was like, all right, we just held out. We held out until Twitch started working again. And then it did. And then we had a really great conversation. The hour flew by so fast. So hopefully I can take that idea and then kind of, reevaluate it, reassess it, and learn how to streamline and see what I did well and what I didn't do well and make it a regular thing. I'd love to get more of my team members on there and people that I look up to and just anybody that wants to have a conversation about whatever it is that they do. That's what I'd love to achieve with it eventually over time, is just have really great conversations with people, whether it's about streaming and video game or not, whatever it is that excites them and is a good topic and something we can talk about on a interesting level that people find interesting. So
when's the last time you pretended to be sick to stay home and play a game?
I clearly remember doing that when I was in second grade for for A Link to the Past. I don't think I ever really did it ever again after that, but that's definitely one that I always tell people about because I remember it so clearly. I remember telling my teacher that I had an earache and my stomach was hurting and I knew that I had Zelda at home. So I was like, I don't feel good. And then I went home and played Link to the Past.
Were your parents ever like,
No, I don't think they really knew, like, because I think it probably was that my ears did hurt a bit because I do remember going to the doctor after that. But nah, they no one caught on.
What do you think is your greatest gaming achievement?
Oh man, let's see. My greatest gaming achievement. That's tough because it's like that's the thing too about playing video games on Twitch is that you play so many of them. You know what? Probably beating Mega Man 1. That, okay, like honestly, I never in my life thought I was gonna beat a Mega Man game because they look so difficult. And I remember we stayed on that stream, I think it was like 6 hours, and I was so tired. But I had finally at the end caught the pattern of all of the bosses and then made it towards the end. And I didn't, like I just beat the game without like using any cheats or codes or save states or any of that kind of stuff. So that was really tough, man. Especially for a first time person who has never played Mega Man games before.
That was actually the video that made me ask that question because I saw you kind of going through the different weapons and trying to find which one is actually right for Dr. Wily, and you seemed
Oh,
very
God.
happy when you finally got it.
Yeah, that and definitely Sonic 2, that was rough as well. I was struggling with that game hardcore.
What game have you been playing the longest and still have yet to beat?
Oh man. Probably Morrowind. Definitely because I've been playing that since cuz I stream on the GOG channel too, and I was very apprehensive about playing an open world game like that because I always felt like if I get into this game, like I'm the kind of person that likes to complete everything. And like if I go through a pathway and then I realize that I can't ever do like X other thing and then learn that I like missed something really cool because I took a different pathway, it would just be like, like it would give me agita. I would just be like, oh, but what if I did this thing? I should have went back and like, so I was always really afraid of playing open world games. But then when I started playing it, I realized it's more about the journey than anything. It's really more about like explore this and play this and do this and I thought that was like really really cool. So I fell in love with Morrowind, and I still haven't beaten it yet, but I've been playing it since I discovered on the GOG channel, and that was like months ago. Probably I don't even think it's been a year yet, but it's probably getting close to being a year.
I'm similar in that, yeah, like I have trouble not, clicking A on every wall or whatever and trying to make sure that I get everything. And when I first played the like Fallout 3 and beyond, I had a lot of trouble with the idea that, well, you can't pick everything up because then you're over encumbered and then you can't move. I was like, but what if I need this empty can later?
I know. Oh my God. Like I keep Sujamma and Matza and all that stuff on me just in case I get over encumbered. And I'm like, okay, then we'll like warp to a temple and then I'll drop stuff on the ground and then I'll get to Caldera and then I'll sell it to Creeper. And like I got a whole plan laid out for whenever that happens.
What video game character best represents your cat?
Bobby. Oh my gosh, she's sleeping so sweetly right over there too. Let's see what video game character best encompasses Bobby. I think I would have to say Punchy on Animal Crossing. Punchy is one of the cats in Animal Crossing. And the reason why is because Bobby's a very funny cat. She's very funny. She like so yesterday I was in the kitchen and I think I was just like getting something to drink or whatever, but she ran in whenever I go in. She runs into the kitchen whenever I go in there. And she looks at her bowl and I'm like, Bobby, you just ate. But then if I walk out the kitchen, she'll follow me and then she'll tap me with her paws, like to say, like, you better pay attention to me. And I'm just like, excuse me. So she's a very funny and smart cat. And I think Punchy because Punchy always makes me laugh in Animal Crossing, and Punchy's kind of like a tuxedo cat, and Bobby's a tuxedo cat. So they always make me laugh, and I love them a lot.
Awesome. I was thinking about my own cat for this, and I think Patch is from Dark Soul because you cannot trust my cat.
Oh, that's funny.
I know you're a huge fan of Gandalf. You've said that's your favorite Lord of the Rings character. I wondered, can you describe yourself? Who would you be in Middle-earth? Doesn't have to be like a character that already exists. Like, what would your Middle-earth version be?
I totally think I would be, like, I'd want to be an elf, but I know I'd be a hobbit because I love second and third and fourth meals. And I love roast potatoes, and I love food and having fun and dancing and being silly. So I feel like I would be a hobbit, even though I'd like be like, oh man, I wish I was an elf because they're so elegant and artistic and beautiful and live in these beautiful places and, you know, just are so like, I don't know, like you aspire to be like that. But I know myself, like I'm just too silly to not be a hobbit.
Well, hey, I mean, hobbits end up being the most heroic. So there you go.
There you go. Good point.
You were a contestant on Frogger on NBC.
That was a really fun experience. And in fact, they found me because of my front time page on Twitch, which was when I became a Twitch ambassador last year. March, I believe, was when I was on the front page for a week. And someone reached out to me through Instagram and they were like, we saw you on Twitch. We saw you on the front page of Twitch and we wanted to reach out to you about this game show that we're creating about video games. And at first they didn't really tell me what it was about. And I was like, of course, why wouldn't I want to hear about this? So then they sent me the application, I filled it out, and then they asked me to do like a video like about, you know, how athletic I was and things like that. And I was like, okay, I am not athletic at all. I used to love going to the gym and I had a personal trainer and all that stuff, but I fell out of it like around when COVID happened and like all this stuff. Like I just fell out of going to the gym. And so I was like, okay, I did not think that they were going to pick me at all from this like strength assessment that they made me do. I was like, there's no way. I could barely finish the workout, whatever. Then they messaged me back. I was like, okay, we want you to be on the show. You're going to have to fly to LA and then you're going to fly to Australia, Sydney. And because, you know, it was like still the height of COVID, we had to like quarantine for a couple of weeks. And then we were able to, you know, film the show, which was really fun. I met a lot of really nice people. And it was really an interesting experience to get to see like how a show like that is filmed and made and things like that. So it was really cool. You know, obviously if you watch the episode, you'll see like I lasted like 3 seconds, but you know what? At least I made it, and at least I made people laugh. I made the hosts laugh, and that's a win to me.
Going into it, were you at all like, I know Frogger, I'm good at Frogger, I'm going to be so good at this?
I did a little bit because I thought that there was going to be more than just physical activities. Like I thought that there would be some aspects of the game involved or some aspects of like, you know, using like, you know, like using non-physical skills. You know, I thought there would be maybe some of that involved, but it was all physical. So yeah.
I think that's so cool. That must have been so much fun.
It was awesome. And like I said, I met a lot of really nice people through it. And it's definitely a unique experience that, you know, I could tell people about. Like, well, at least I got to go to Australia for a month. I was in Australia for a month. And I never thought I would have an opportunity to go to Australia. So that was, Sydney is such a beautiful place. And that was definitely one of my favorite aspects of the trip.
So we're pretty much winding down, but, you know, in a little more than 3 years, actually didn't take you that long, but you've come so far in Twitch. You've got a huge following. You're an ambassador. What's your aspirations from here? Where do you want to take this Twitch career?
So that's a good question. It's something that I'm constantly asking myself. And things that I'm working on for myself is I never had confidence in my ability to write throughout my younger years and being in school and things like that. And I always thought that if I did write, people would look at it really critically and be like, oh, this sounds really terrible, whatever. But I've been challenging myself to explore more of that. And I want to eventually, because I have a website, I want to eventually like write on the blog portion of the website and just share things about things that I've learned about video games, some of my favorite games, some of my artwork that I've done. Just have a place to kind of share like my journey. And I have an idea that I want to kind of like create like a section that's dedicated to like the visual identity of video games. In, like I kind of want to like look at video game graphic design critically and be like, look at these typography, like look at the typography choices that they're making with the brand. Look at like, like the different aspects of the art and the color design, the color theory, and like, like cool like giveaways and stuff. How did they make this? How did they produce it? Like print it and stuff like that. So I kind of want to do that. Like just look at like find out what I love and what I've done, myself, and kind of marry those two things. So I'd love to write about video games in that aspect and just about me and my journey as a person. And also, I feel like when you're a broadcaster on Twitch, the only thing that holds you back is how creative do you want to be? And I feel like I haven't hit my creative potential yet in terms of what am I capable of? Like, am I pushing my boundaries to like, make the broadcast look as good as it should and, like do things that people can interact with and find appealing. So I want to continue to focus on making the show better and then giving people other ways to connect with me, but also learn about something with video games. Because I think that's also something that's really important, is making sure that games are accessible and also what can I share with other people to inspire them, through their like career in gaming and things like that. Because I get a lot of that from people too. Like whenever I do shows and stuff like that, people always say, oh, you as a woman doing this, that's really inspiring to me. And you inspired me to do X, Y, and Z. And I want to continue to do that for other people.
Awesome. Well, people can keep up to date and watch Ash Said Hi at twitch.tv/Ash Said Hi. Ash Said Hi. Thank you for being here.
Oh, yeah, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.